Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I hope everything was great. I hope you had a good holiday. I know that I had a really good Thanksgiving. My wife's family flew in from up north. So we did at our aunt's house because it was her children that flew in. And I mean, the house was full. A lot of people, a lot of good food, a lot of jokes, laughs. Talked so much that the next day my cheekbones were hurting. It was a struggle. And I had to go back to work the next day. So I had to, talk again, keep talking. And so by the time Saturday night came, which I had yesterday and I have today off, I felt like I was the Joker because my smile just felt like it was just, either that or I had some kind of Botox or something, because my cheekbones were just like all the way up here and it just felt like I couldn't stop smiling so much. But again, I hope you guys had a really wonderful holiday. Now, I was thinking about this because so news has come out. It's pretty much official. Godzilla Minus One. There is a sequel that is coming, right? And last week, my daughter and we sat back and we watched Godzilla Minus One. Now, the reason why I wanted her to sit back and watch this one with me is because we watched Godzilla and Kong. What is it? New Empire. I think that's what it was. The most recent one. And we watched it, and my daughter during it, she was like, "Oh, wow!" She couldn't wait for it to end. She was like, "Oh," because it was the story. Just I don't know. Maybe it's because even for me, that story just didn't like catch me. There were certain areas where it felt rushed. There were certain times where it's like, okay, I want to see more of like, King Kong and Godzilla, and I want to see what's going on with them. And they did show a good amount. They showed a good amount of that. But then when it came to the human stuff like that, I didn't care about the one girl's past or, her people being there in that area and stuff like that. I just, for the most part, I didn't care about the narrative like that, right? I just wanted to get to the actual action parts. That was just a story I just really could have cared less about. But when it came to Godzilla Minus One, one of my daughters sit back and watch this because I love Minus One. I've watched Minus One. This is the fourth time I've watched it now, and even watched it with the English dub voiceover and everything. And I didn't bother me. I loved it regardless because the premise of it I think is it's a great movie. Whether it's in a different language or not, I think that just the way how it was handled, the story of it, the CGI was okay. I just think overall it was and the music was great, and it just really set a good tone and a really good threat of why Godzilla was a major threat in this, right? And that's actually what I wanted to go into as to why I don't think Godzilla Minus One sequel, I don't think it's going to catch as much steam as this one did. Here's why. So, with my daughter, she sat back, she watched it with me, and Godzilla Minus One, she loved it. And she was on the edge of her seat, just like how I was when I first saw the movie. And the reason why, she kept talking during it, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, how are they going to stop Godzilla? How are these people, what's going to happen? What's going to be the end resolution for this situation?" And that's what I felt. Because if you look at it, Godzilla Minus One, it takes place right after World War II, right? That's when the setting takes place. It literally just wrapped up, and Japan is very low on their resources. Understandably so. Big war took place. They're pretty much ground level, still trying to figure out ways to rebuild because of what happened between Japan and the U.S., right? And then, boom, you got Godzilla now. And Godzilla comes through, does his thing, and the whole time you're thinking, wow, how are these people going to stop Godzilla? And I think that they did a really good job with the people, too, because of everybody had their own little personality. You felt for them because it was a situation that you could relate to and that you could show some kind of empathy for. Because they were all down on their luck, and you felt bad for the main character because of he felt like he was a failure for not committing to the mission that took place, and his part in the war, he didn't commit to that. And then also what happened that pretty much caused Godzilla to be free and absorb the radiation and stuff, but he could have potentially stopped Godzilla on an island. If you haven't seen it yet, he could have potentially stopped Godzilla in the very beginning of the movie, but he didn't do so, and that, goes into everything else that happens. So you really feel for these characters, but the setting is what really does it. They're limited on their resources. They don't have a lot of weapons. How can they stop a threat, which Godzilla has his healing factor? He's got the atomic blast. He's got all these things. He's massive. What could they do to stop that? And that's why I think that movie worked so well. Now, if you go into a sequel of it, I guess personally, a little bit of it is biased for me because I don't want to see these characters go through it again. I thought that it ended off very well for all of them. And I don't want to see them specifically struggle. Now, you could bring in a whole new cast, right? You could do a whole new point of view. And then, yes, that could work. But if they do it again, it would have to be around that same time period, I think, in order for it to work. Because if you wait too long, and now they have all these military advances, well, I don't think it'll really capture as well as the first one did. But then again, you risk the case of it, okay, if you don't do that, well, then a lot of people are going to be like, well, it's kind of like you're just redoing, like you're just... Yeah, it's like the sequel trend to where it calls back too much to the first movie and it's kind of the same plot, right? So my thought on it is, I think Godzilla Minus One should be a one and done. And I get the same kind of feeling with this like I did with the Joker. The Joker, when that first came out with Joaquin Phoenix, I absolutely thought, okay, this should be a one and done film. It was really good. It kind of was different perspective of you actually got the point of view of the Joker, even though it's not, it's not the Joker that everybody's used to, but it's kind of an origin story for a Joker that nobody's ever gotten. It addresses certain mannerisms and things like that. That he, hold on, let me make sure I'm still recording. Okay, that the Joker shows, later on. It made you understand, okay, oh, this is why. Oh, he laughs like this because of this situation, and blah, blah, blah. That's a cool take on it, right? And it just really worked. But then the sequel came out, and the sequel just completely got crapped on, and it was just, everybody kind of hated it, and it kind of ruined what the Joker was, right? Because now it's got that sequel attached to it. And I think that's what I'm scared of in the case when it comes to this. How will they go about it? I don't know. I'm hoping that if it was me personally, I would go with a brand new cast. It would be too close. It would mess up a lot of development, I would think, if you go back and you throw these people back in again. If you have the same main character go through this pain and heartache again in this movie, it would kind of be like, okay, we've already been here, done that, right? So that's why I would want to go with a brand new cast, and then see how that would go. But you risk again, hey, I just think that as far as with the narrative, you can play a little bit more if you have a brand new cast. And that's my whole thing behind it. But that's if I did it. But personally, I say that this should have stayed as a one and done. But as more news comes out, I'm going to follow up on it because I absolutely love that movie. My daughter had a blast with it. She wants to actually rewatch it again. So that's really cool because she didn't have that same kind of thing with Kong. When we watched Godzilla Kong New Empire, she was like, okay, good. I can go to bed. Thank God. She almost was like... she was about to pray to God. She was about to say, hey, thank you so much, God, for letting this in. I appreciate it. Good Lord, the misery is over. But with this one, she was like, oh, by the end of it, she was like, no, I need more of this. So that was cool. And she teared up a little bit because of, what happened throughout the film. So it really hit her emotionally, and I thought that was really cool. And that's the sign of a good film to me, especially when you can catch the attention of like the younger crowd like that. And it wasn't like goofy, it wasn't like marvelous or anything like that, where it was like catered to a super young crowd. Because my daughter, she's in those teenage years now. But it had her interested, and it hit the emotional strings, and so she loved it, and I loved it too. And I think that this should be a one and done, and that's all I got to say on that. But as more news comes out, I'm gonna cover more about Godzilla Minus One sequel, Godzilla Minus or Godzilla Plus One. Hopefully, hopefully it's not Godzilla Plus One and something else comes in. But if anything, too, I hope it doesn't become. If we do stick with Godzilla, I hope it stays as a Godzilla thing. I don't want it to branch out into like with Mothra and all the other kaijus and stuff like that. I think that this worked. Keep the focus on Godzilla. It doesn't have to really branch out into the wild, super, like what's going on in the U.S. right now with all the kaijus and everything. I think that too many kaijus becomes a problem because then you gotta, with the story, one, like what's going on with the U.S., I think it's because they're trying to force you to love the humans, and then you've got the kaiju doing, you got one kaiju doing its thing, got the other kaiju doing its thing, and the story kind of starts going all over the place. It's not centered and grounded, and that's where I think that the issue comes in with what's going on as far as with the U.S. handling it. But with Toho, with what they're doing, just keep the focus on Godzilla, since that sequel's coming out, and you know, hopefully the sequel will be just as good, if not better, than the first one. Anyways, let me know in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts? Let me know, like the video, subscribe, share it, and I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. This is Nate's Tape. You guys have a good day.